Hello, everybody, and welcome to ABM Answered, the quickfire Demand Gen and ABM video series, or at least that's what we aim for. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Saurabh Sanghi, a marketing maestro who has torn up the travel, retail, e-commerce, fintech, I think I've got that right, sectors, and then more, and is currently the senior marketing manager and marketing specialist at IGT Solutions. So, Saurabh, thank you so much for joining. Perhaps a good question I always like to ask is, how did you end up in B2B marketing?
Sam, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. I think it was like I was always inclined towards marketing since my college days. So if I give you my background about academics, I have done MBA in special with specialization in marketing. So I always had that knack towards marketing. And the funny thing is, I started my career with sales in B2B sales, and so I used to work very closely with the marketing team there in my first company. And gradually I ventured as I moved to different assignments. I started getting involved more into marketing stuff, and I worked for a short period in an agency as well. And that's how I started learned some traits of marketing more over there. And luckily I got one good assignment in a corporate world, and that's how my B2B journey started. And it's been like 9 years now I'm into B2B marketing, promoting and selling software and services. So that's how it is.
Yeah, I figured you must know a thing or two by now. And also, if you've seen any of my previous content, I genuinely believe the best salespeople, the best marketers are marketers that have had sales backgrounds, because like they've got the empathy there for the other side.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I guess to run you through the rules very quickly and the viewers through the rules, Saurabh, in this case, will be given a set of questions to respond to, all about account-based marketing and demand generation. We'll sprinkle that in there occasionally. The
Sure.
questions have come from or been adapted based on the data that we've collected from mixed reality rooms, where over 1,000 marketers have gone through and stated what their biggest struggles are with ABM. But because we're big time now, Saurabh, we've now started to include previous guest questions, which is so much more fun. So, are
Okay.
you ready to jump into question one?
Sure.
Cool.
All set.
So,
Yeah.
the first problem, and it's becoming more of a thing. The more I get indoctrinated into ABM, like the more I know about it. But what I'm realizing, it's an emerging industry. The first problem that came in is like knowing where to start. So a lot of companies are, I guess, a question then would be like, when implementing either an ABM demand gen program, what do those kind of like first steps look like for you? What goals are important to align on? And as with every kind of like pilot, shall we say, what is a good timeline in your opinion?
So Sam, I think when I talk about like ABM, it's quite a popular approach or a concept, I would say, in the marketing world. And I know it's working for a lot of companies these days, and people are adapting that. So for me, when I look at ABM, I think a couple of things are very very important. I'll say prerequisites are, I think, first of all, I think it's important to form a core team a cross-functional team where you have representation from sales, marketing, maybe a product team, and so on. I think that core team should lead and drive the entire ABM approach and campaign. Secondly, I think once you have this team in place, second thing is, and obviously in collaboration with sales as well as the product team, you have to identify who are the right set of accounts for you. So basically, the ideal customer profile uh, uh, for you. And once that is identified, that okay, these are the 100 accounts or 200 accounts that we have to go after in a particular industry. As like in ABM you have in ABM you have to try and narrow down that from 100 to 10 to 1. So from one to many to one to few to one to one approach. Then you need to have a very strong research process in place to help segment those accounts into different clusters or different buckets, so that you know that okay, what kind of messaging or what kind of problem you have to solve in that particular account. So I think that those are the first three steps that I would like to do, and I think believe that that should be there. And once you have that account segmentation in place, and those account segmentations can be in different ways, like there can be accounts where there is already some opportunity going on and you have to create some brand awareness. There can be accounts where there are some through your research you identify that there are some problems there. Maybe it can be around data analytics, they are struggling with customer service and so on. There can be low priority accounts. Maybe you're trying to venture into a new industry and you don't know what that industry is all about. So maybe you can prioritize those accounts, in that particular
Hmm.
bucket. And then obviously sales also helps you through ground intelligence that okay, there is something cooking up in coming months. So that's how I think you can prioritize those accounts. And once that is done, then you have to move to your next step of that is messaging. So you have to create those personalized, customized messaging for each of those accounts or personas depending on the need. And once that is done, I think tech stack also plays a crucial role. You need to have a proper integrated tech stack which talks to your CRM. So once and then I think you are all set. If these things are in line and in place, and there is complete alignment between sales and marketing, I think then you are all set to launch a campaign. And in terms of the goals, Sam, everything has to be measurable, right? I mean, that's the beauty of ABM, that you can measure things. That's the beauty of tools that are there. You can measure things. So probably you can set up goals like what should be the account engagement score, how many opportunities you are trying to generate from that particular account. So I think these kind of goals probably you can set for each of your campaigns. And in terms of timelines, I think for a pilot, maybe 3 months start will be a good, where probably first 5 6 months, 5 6 weeks can be for the utilized for the planning thing. And then the next 5 6 weeks you probably execute your campaign and keep monitoring the performance and optimize it as and when required. And probably you can take those learnings for your future campaigns. So I think that's how my approach I think should be.
Saurabh, that is superb. I had follow-on questions, and then you were
Sure.
answering them as I went. And then I know we've got a few more questions coming up. I love the Navy. It's like you almost described ABM as like a Navy SEAL team. It's like get your like core like special forces group in, one salesperson, one product person. I think a lot you probably get a lot more buy-in as well. Like if you were kind of framed as that like elite specialist
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
And I yeah, great breakdown. Problem two was this is a great one. I love this one. Finding innovative ways to break through the noise on a budget. So I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure this came in from Autodesk. So obviously big budgets, but even big companies restrain. So what's worked for you and kind of like your clients or like just you on campaigns in the past? Is there anything out of the ordinary, I guess, that people aren't doing, which you think they should really capitalize on now for engagement?
See, Sam, I think what is important in enterprise marketing world is two things are very important, I believe, and that has always worked for me because if I stick to them, the other things follow on its own. One is the research and the intelligence piece. So you need to have a very strong research process or team in place who can regularly feed you with intelligence. That, as I said, like when you segment those accounts, what's cooking in that account, what's going on in that particular account, what problems they are struggling with, why they are in news. That kind of intelligence, probably sets the course for your campaigns as well. So I think that is very important. Secondly, I again emphasize on collaboration here, where you need to talk to your sales reps day in and day out, exchange that intelligence, that information, because they are the ears and years for you on the ground. So they have to be in sync, and they have to the information that you exchange with them, that is like sets everything in place. So I think these two things always work for me. And I'll give you one classic example. I can't name the company or the account name, but I'll give you an example, and it's a very small thing, but you will see that how what I'm referring to. So there is a very high potential account. I mean, it's an account that if you're working in that particular industry, every competitor will go after that particular account, right? And we were chasing that account left, right, center, trying to engage with the key stakeholders, decision makers in that account through events, LinkedIn, emails, our sales reps, uh, all the possible channels we were trying. But here is where the research and the intelligence piece came into play, uh, as well as the collaboration, where one of our sales rep found out that there is an RFP going on in this account. They've released an RFP, and within a day, I launched a campaign around that, to target those decision makers in that account. So around that RFP, created the list of important decision makers as well as potential influencers, and
Hmm.
created customized tailored messaging, which through LinkedIn I try to create brand recall in that particular account. Parallelly, I also engage the BDR team with that messaging to start reaching out to those key decision makers within that account. So that's how, and eventually we got the RFP, and today it's a multi-million dollar account for us. So
Ka-ching.
yeah, so that's how these things work. Collaboration and research are, I think, very very important.
You're a much better marketer than me. I'm all novelty, and you're like, let's start with the research. Let's start with what's going on. If we're going to keep along the military theme as well, and I have no idea how we've got here, but like having the sales team as like spies to like your Navy SEAL, like all of this is coming together wonderfully.
Yeah.
Right. Problem 3, middle of the funnel jam. So, AKA, nurturing basically. Like, how do you stay top of mind because sales cycles are getting longer? So, it kind of follows on from like the last question. I mean, you're getting the intel and everything from the sales team, learning what's working, what their accounts are doing. But is there any way or like innovative ways that in the past you have managed to not hijack RFPs, but just like, maybe a deal stuck and you've got them going again, or maybe you've managed to speed up that kind of from leads to closed ratio kind of thing, proposal to closed ratio. Is there anything that you've done there to help with nurturing?
Yeah, so I think I mean that's an important parameter, Sam. Pipeline velocity, right? That's something very important in ABM, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what ABM help you do that. So usually when such things happen, I think during the nurturing stage, it is very important to understand the kind of assets that you want to use, to accounts down the funnel, and
Sure.
said, like, understanding from your from the data that is there in your CRM, talking to sales, that why these particular accounts are not moving forward, why are they still stuck in the interest stage or the decision stage, so all that, once you have that information, probably you can create those uh, assets, those customized assets for those accounts or personas, which can be, which probably can, help those the prospects understand what the company is all about. It has to be like, those assets can be like in the form of a white paper, when a person or when a prospect is in the interest stage, or maybe a product brochure, right?
Mm.
And once and in that process, like once it moves little more forward, maybe in a decision stage, maybe you can start sharing those case studies, use case specific articles, or maybe some customer testimonials that can build confidence within the prospects. So I think that way, maybe you will be able to nurture those leads, those prospects, those accounts, and obviously having that feedback mechanism in place where you share what you have done from the nurturing aspect with sales, so that they can also, eventually understand that what steps have been taken by sales and then marketing, and then they can also, probably they have to be in sync for those conversations. So yeah.
That makes total sense. I just one quick follow-on question to that. You mentioned case studies as like more of a bottom of the funnel kind of activity, like right here, let's hit them with social proof to kind of get them to close the deal. Do you ever use, and I'm learning this as I go, like
Sure.
talking to people, like, do you ever use case studies at the top of funnel as well, or is it not really that effective? Do they need to be kind of engaged before you get them to read like a 3 or 4 slide case study,
I
or
don't
do you use? Yeah.
Yeah, so Sam, I think case studies would not work at the top of the funnel. I mean, it shouldn't. That's my experience, because I think the first step is to familiarize your prospect, the account, who you as a company are, what you do, right? And so I think that in that awareness stage, probably the blogs, articles, maybe ebooks, kind of things help. And once that awareness is developed, probably then once the person has shown some form of interest, maybe that then you can start showing your what you have delivered, what your customers think about. So probably I think I would prefer to have case studies in the middle of the funnel rather than having it at the top.
Interesting. That's. Sorry for the little tangent there. That stuff's. I think like these little things that you make me think about are this. It's like where we haven't gone with interviews before, and I think information like that's really really interesting.
Hmm.
Just one last thing. So you say it's not useful at the top of funnel as such. Like obviously question marks. We're not going to like hold you to gunpoint and be like, Saurabh said it wasn't effective. But like, would you ever tell like the BDR team to include that in their messaging, as in like, hey, we worked with Apple and we did X? Like, is it do like the case study, like basically key points, ever go into messaging at the top of the funnel?
Sorry, I kind of lost you.
No worries. I think my internet's bad. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Sorry, I kind of lost you, Sam. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me
I can
now?
hear you now. Yeah, can you please repeat your
One,
question?
sure.
Yeah.
Simply put, and I'm so sorry, I'm conscious of time, but would you ever tell the BDR team to use case studies in emails and not to send like the whole deck to them, but just like, hey, here's the impact we had at Apple, and include that in messaging? Because ultimately that's top of funnel as well, right? Like, does that
Yeah.
ever get used?
So I think see, it depends. Like at the top of the funnel, obviously you can have some relation that like we helped a top tech company improve CSAT by 15%. Those kind of KPIs. Maybe you can mention in your email, but then I would avoid. I would not suggest them to use the case study in the first email itself. But obviously
Okay.
create some curiosity.
Yeah.
About it. So I think that should be the approach. But you never know. These are just references. Some few things you have you experience, but then there is a certain references, but then accordingly you have to act according to the situation.
For
So
sure.
yeah,
And theory's a wonderful thing, right? It never works in practice, but like,
in
yeah, we can
practice,
theorize.
yeah.
Sorry, but you okay for time? I'm so sorry. We've kind of,
Oh yeah,
have you?
absolutely. We can
All
continue.
right,
Yeah.
wonderful. So, question 4 is a previous guest's question. It's from Matt Conway, who is the senior ABM manager at TX1 Networks, a cybersecurity company. He asked, how do you get those healthy and honest conversations going between sales and marketing? And I think the angle here is like, what's that? There's a lot of like
Chemistry.
bravado for both. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
How do you kind of get that happening?
Yeah, yeah. So, like for me, I work with the sales team globally. So two, three things. I mean, and those are very fundamental things, Sam. I would say, no rocket science or anything. You have to be very good with people, right? So, uh, that's the foundation basically. So it's always good to have those that clarity on the goals and the objectives in every region. So what your sales team wants to achieve in that particular region, what are their targets, revenue, and eventually that are your targets also. So you have to support the sales team to achieve those targets. Your sales team is in the front, you are in the
Hmm.
back, but you are eventually both working towards the same goal and the same business objective. So that's very important. That alignment has to be very important. Secondly, I think communication always helps. So I having that open clear communication, obviously throwing ideas to each other and reaching to that consensus that okay, this is what is best for the business. So having those open carefree communication with sales is always helpful. Thirdly, in terms of feedback, you should always be open to feedback, right? So whatever marketing efforts that you are putting, your campaigns that you are running, obviously you will share that data, that results with sales guys so that they can act further on it. But then you should always be open to feedback as well, that what were the positives, what were the negative. So you have to be aligned in all ways with sales whenever you are setting up a campaign, running a campaign, and post that. And lastly, you should always enjoy success jointly. That's the I mean that always believe it or not, everybody loves recognition. That's what everybody works for, to be honest. So and that's what I do, and that's what my sales team also do. So there is
Yeah.
always if there are joint efforts for any particular thing, it's always good to appreciate those, and that's how you can.
Yeah, words of affirmation are always good. The I love that we're keeping it on again military theme here. We could be like sales are in the front seat, marketer in the back. It's like a fighter pilot. You got the back guy looking out for everyone, and the
I
sales are like spearheading the
actually
charge.
wanted to give that analogy in this answer, but
Oh, really?
so no, that's fine. So how these Navy SEALs work, right? So they have those people on the ground, like
Yeah.
which I believe are marketing, who kind of do the ambush part. And once
Yeah.
the doors are open, then the sales are the snipers who just when the doors
Yeah.
are open, they start shooting. So I think
I mean, look, the military thing's aggressive, but at the same time, every salesperson I know is like Wolf of Wall Street. Da, da, da. They would love it. They would love it. I think more talks need to start like this. The other thing that you said, and Henry's got a question. The one thing on like recognition is Henry Clark, senior ABM manager, Security HQ. He said this was at his previous company, which I won't actually mention for what I'm about to say, but it's like the closest that like the closer it gets to the sale, the more sales want to detach from marketing because sales want to take the credit, even though it's been like a joint bit of work up until that point. And that causes some like late term friction. And I thought that was a really interesting point that you made.
yeah.
But we
No, that
must
happens,
we
but
must
then
persevere.
yeah.
Question 5 is from another previous guest, Tiago Lucio. He's the ex ABM manager at Google Cloud. He said, with ABM being an emerging concept, and you already gave us some great starting points, but his advice is more for like, so say you're a student looking to get your first job, and there's like a junior ABM role. Most ABM roles at the moment, because ABM's still relatively small, it's kind of like taking off, but it's still relatively
Yeah,
small.
yeah.
Like the ABM team is like 1 or 2 people, and they're often like senior, they know what they're doing. But like, what advice would you give to someone who's never done ABM before, is looking to start their career, I guess, within marketing as like kind of out of the gates?
I think so. Uh, there are a couple of as a starter, like I think to understand what ABM is all about, how it is different from demand generation, right? So it's good to read some good books around ABM. There are a lot of them in the market, and there are these ABM companies, who have their own blogs, articles. Probably that can be a good starting point to get some grasp of what ABM is, and what it does and how it is different from the demand generation process. Secondly, somebody has to be comfortable. Data is very important in ABM analysis. So I think reading data and how to analyze that data, somebody has to be, you should try and get comfortable with that. Collaboration, so you need to develop those good people skills. Collaborate. I mean, that's a non-negotiable in when when you want to develop your career in ABM, because you have to collaborate with a lot of cross-functional teams, not just sales. So that's there. And then I think get somebody should also start getting a nag of tech, because marketing is not simply ATL, BTL, or digital. It's evolving every day, and there are a lot of tools and technologies that are coming up. So how to integrate that with your existing system, and how to utilize it for your benefit. So I think somebody who is a starter, maybe they should start with these 2 3 things, and then I think everything will follow.
As you were talking, I'm going to murder this man. It made me think, why is he not just plugging ABM Answered in? Like, it's got all the answers there of like how to do everything. Like, that's the resource that you probably want to be reading. But anyway, that just, yeah, that came to me. Like, this is the whole point and goal of it, to like
Yeah.
debunk it all. Maybe we just need to do more. Question 6, and this is a question from Chelsea Wells, who is the senior
Hmm.
ABM manager at Master Control. She asked, and I wanted to ask you this in your response to question 1, what are some of the forgotten KPIs? Wow, I've written that twice there for my questions. Apologies. But like, what are some of the KPIs, I guess, that are overlooked now, which are
Hmm.
actually really important?
That's a very good question. If I think of it, like, I think so. I mean, like, content is the fuel of ABM, if you ask me, right? Because eventually, how you approach a person or an account, you rely on that effective content, right? This is the research that you. So I think
Mm-hmm.
so when you create those assets for your campaigns and all, from the marketing standpoint, you measure everything. What, how many downloads are there, open rates, click rates. You get those uh, through your tools that you use to disseminate that content. But I think sales also use those content, right? So it is also, I think, from the sales standpoint, I would one metric that I would say is like sales content engagement, which can tell
Mm-hmm.
you that how sales is utilizing that assets, how many times they have uh, used that asset in reaching out to the customers, and what kind of response rate they have received using that, because eventually that's part of your feedback loop, your feedback mechanism, and it also gives you, I mean, that will help you understand what's working and what's not working. So maybe your future content assets, probably you can create it uh, accordingly. So I think that's something which is often overlooked, I would say.
The best answer you could have
Does
given.
that answer?
The
Yeah.
reason why is because I've just put two and two together speaking with you. I read something quite a while back that like 80% of all the material that or 70% of all the material marketing make is never used by sales.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then on the other side of the equation, 30% of salespeople's time is done redoing or like personalizing the content marketing and sending it across.
Exactly.
If we look at an organization as a whole and think of like tech bloat or just any bloat, to be honest, like resource bloat within an organization, that is a great metric to optimize for. And having like some form of like feedback survey, like, is that good? Is that not? You're a genius. That was a
No,
solid
I'm not. I'm
answer.
just telling you from my experience.
You've been in the trenches. Right. So, last question. Congratulations, you've made it. It's from Henry Clark. I said senior ABM manager at Security HQ. He's doing a really good job. Just started, new in the ground. He asked, oh, this is a great one to end on. What would be your perfect ABM team setup? So we spoke about that right in the beginning. And then also there's like bonus points in naming who would be in your team. Now, obviously, you don't have to name any names or anything, but if there are people that come to mind with like that you really admire, maybe this is a great plug to go work with them. I don't know, but yeah, I'll just leave you with that. I know you spoke about it in question one, but if you've got anything to abbreviate or like kind of expand on that, that would be great.
So Sam, like I think my perfect ABMs, I think in a perfect ABM setup, you need to have that core team, which will comprise of somebody from marketing, sales, and then I think it also depends. Obviously, marketing, sales, and product team for sure, and a resource person. These will be the four pillars in that team. But the scale and size of that team will depend on the organization structure as well, right? So I mean, because I mean, if it's a global company or a global organization, then you can't just have a sales head from a particular region, so let's say Americas or APAC. So you have to define, structure the team accordingly depending on your scale and size of operations. But I think these will be the four key pillars: marketing, somebody from marketing, maybe a field marketer or something of not a field marketer, but somebody who's on the strategy side of marketing, then a sales guy, somebody from the solutions on the product team for sure, and a strong researcher, because and
Mm.
then so these will be the four guys who will be there in that team. And I think, yeah, once that is said, you obviously then the marketer will work with the content team, the digital team, the AR team, to ensure that those strategies are implemented effectively through a multi-channel approach. And then also, I also would like to have a right set of tech stack, not too bulky, rather structured and a streamlined tech stack which can be used to execute those campaigns quickly
Let,
and efficiently. Yeah.
let's
So
throw in a bonus question because you mentioned this quite a few times. Tech stack. What is your dream? So another question that came in from a guest, their name eludes me, was what would be your dream tech stack if you could pick three things? So maybe lean on your experience as to like what are the three tools that you use like religiously now? Like where's the most value coming tool wise? If you can speak
you,
about that
you
at
want me
all.
to name that? You want me to?
Other providers are available, people. Like I've got no affiliation. I think it's just everyone hears about Demand Base and Sixth Sense, like the big players.
Yeah.
But are there any like unique tools that copy AI? I don't know. Like what's hot?
So I think there are a couple of like demand-based Six Sense. Then I think Rollworks is there, and I think so that's there for sure. You need to have a CRM like Salesforce, which is integrated with any of these ABM tools. And then I think Bombura has been acquired by, I don't
Oh
know, like.
yeah, good to get
I'm
acquired.
not sure, but then from the intent perspective, you need to have some tool which can give you that intelligence, which accounts are showing those buying signals.
Hmm.
I'm not 100% like fan of intent signals, because there is some tech and that is in place. But
You
yeah,
and
at
me
least it gives you
both.
some. At least it gives you some, feeding, some feed to start something.
Hmm.
So I think that's there, and then you need to have your marketing automation tool in place, as well as some database tools like maybe a Zoom Info kind of a thing, or a Lucia, and then obviously LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a
A
no brainer.
crucial one.
So I think these are the two three tools which are kind of mandatory. But other than that, I was emphasizing on research, right? Since the start of this conversation, you need to have those very strong good research, account-based intelligence tools. There are a lot in the market which are very handy to understand and deep dive into a particular account. So those tools can provide you information, firmographic data, their technographic data, their current, vendor details, and all that stuff. So I think that information is equally important, and I think that will be the foundation for your campaigns, other than those buying signals that you get from intent-based tools. So I hope
Up in the
I,
technicals.
yeah.
No, that's a solid answer. And I was having a conversation today about, so I did a lot of time in the construction industry growing up.
Okay.
And with painting, the painting's the easiest bit and it's the quickest bit. So if it takes me a week to paint a flat, or 5 days, whatever, the first 2, 3 days are all prep work. So in this
Yeah.
case, research. The execution is like one day, so like what, 20% of it. And then
Absolutely.
the 20% after that is like touching up, finishing, like things break here and there. But like the bulk of any campaign is the research. So I'm super
Yeah.
in agreement
Yeah.
with you on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Sorry, we've
you explained it
sorry,
appropriately, like with this example.
calling all builders everywhere to become marketers. Right, Saurabh, thank you so much. I know we overrun. The last thing I'll ask you is, do you have a question for our next guest?
I do, and I think it is more related uh, to your first question that you asked me. I want to understand what is the right time for an organization to adopt the ABM approach.
You're throwing a frag grenade into the mix. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get a lot of answers. I'll ask a few people because I'm sure there's going to be varying opinions on that one. But
Yeah.
great question. Saurabh, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.